Hey audiobook lovers and night owls. Welcome to part 1 of What If Bella Became an Outcast Before Forks? Let's dive into Bella's world before Forks. Comment Bell. Ow, your favorite moment or which character you're loving so far. Google can do a lot for a person. Millions and millions of people spend time every day searching the most random things, places, and people. Example 1. I found that I have coulrophobia, a fear of clowns, which is probably a really an interesting fact, although it is a common fear, another fact I picked up. Thank you, Google. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, your sexuality, or your age, everybody Googles. I am an avid Googler, which I'm pretty sure is not an actual word, but it would be pretty damn ironic of me to find out through the site. All this isn't relevant though. What I'm getting to is that I have spent a lot of time on the computer this past summer, and I mean a lot. Most teenagers spent their time lounging by the local pool, or getting wasted and passing out at the local Walmart parking lot. At least I saw Tyler Crowley there doing that the other night. If you search the word Outcast, 7,280,000 things can be found. Definitions, clothing, and a hip-hop duo are just some of the results. The definition was really all that I was looking for, but there are a few Outcast songs that I enjoyed. Anyways, an outcast is somebody who was rejected by society or home. That somebody, meaning Bella Swan. I was not always an outcast. I used to run with what could be called the in crowd. Then there was an inside NT at the end of junior year that led me to where I am today, by myself. In one night I had lost my best friend, the rest of my friends, and myself. Now as summer is about to come to a close, I would have to start my senior year of high school as a complete nobody. At some point in the future I would have to face people, and especially one person, that I just did not want to. Life can be somewhat peaceful in the confined white four walls of my bedroom, but in the real world things are different. On the outside I have created the perfect I'm alright look, seeing as though I have had time on my hands to perfect it. It involved keeping my eyes straight ahead, my shoulders back, and walk with dignity, without tripping. 2 of the 3 would at least be easy to achieve. My parents have been convinced by the look. They don't know anything is wrong. Even after that night, I was able to not become a sobbing mess and go on with my life. Renee and Charlie still even think I have friends, which is because I would drive around for hours every so often and then go home to tell them I was with Jess, Lauren, or anybody else that I could think of. So Bella, my mom said at dinner, "You all ready for your senior year?" "Yeah," I said, trying to sound somewhat enthusiastic. We weren't really a big talking family, at least me and my dad weren't. Charlie and I were simple people. If you have nothing good or bad to say, just be quiet. Which was our saying. The conversations were handled by my mom mostly, with a nod here and there from me. Sometimes I would go crazy and throw out a gasp, yes or no. Renee does not care though. She just keeps going on and on about anything or everything. I remember when you used to sit on the couch, coloring in your little Barney coloring book that you would keep in that little backpack you loved. She said, letting out a sad sigh. It seems like just yesterday. It was yesterday, Charlie said with a smirk. Oh shush, I said, sticking out my tongue. I am serious, he snorted. When I came home from work you were sitting out there, paper and crayons in hand. First off, it was a colored pencil. I clarified. Secondly, I was doing the crossword puzzle in the newspaper and couldn't find a pen. Which reminded me that I had to finish that later. Was Barney a word? He joked. No. But retirement home was. I smiled. What? You aren't gonna take care of me when I'm old and senile? He fake pouted. I always teased Charlie about sticking him in a retirement community when he picked on me. It worked though. Not a chance. I said with a laugh. It was moments like this that made my life seem back to normal. But they were just short moments that passed with time. I have a good relationship with my parents, even if we don't talk about everything, or anything. After that night, telling anyone would be bad. But if my parents knew, all hell would break loose. The rumors were bad enough to deal with. I didn't need them to enhance the humility. It just made everything easier to act like myself, or my old self. Jessica Stanley was 20 feet away from my car. In my head I have pictured this moment 1,000 times, happening a million different ways, all kinds of emotions flowing through my body. The truth was, I was not prepared at all. I sat there in my red truck trying to map out my next move. There was nowhere to go, I didn't have any friends left. I sat there, looking out my window at Jessica and her little posse of friends, who were once my friends. Jess looked different, her hair was a little longer, and she was definitely wearing more makeup and less clothing than the last time I saw her. Here it goes, I said to myself, while grabbing my bag and opening the door to my car. I stepped out and already had the feeling of being watched, and I knew exactly who it was. When I turned my head, my suspicions were correct. Jess was looking straight at me. Maybe she is past everything, it's been a while, people change. Then her eyes narrowed and she yelled, "Take a picture, bitch." With that my year had officially begun. My day was going by in a slow, quiet blur. No one spoke to me, just of me, in whispers. Everyone heard, it was obvious, I couldn't expect a town like Forks to not gossip. If it weren't about me, I would find it pretty juicy stuff. It was lunch, an hour of school that I was dreading almost as much as gym. It was kind of like that scene in Mean Girls where there were all those different cliques of people at tables and Lindsay Lohan walks in and then gets to sit with the cool girls. Okay, so it's nothing like that since no one NTS me at their table, and I won't even go into detail on how I and Lindsay Lohan are different. I had two options. Option 1. Eat by myself in the girls' bathroom. Option 2. Sit at the reject table with Edward Cullen. I let out a frustrated sigh. The bathroom is just embarrassing and unsanitary, but I did not want to sit with Edward. He was bad news. I don't prejudge people, but I did see him eat the shit out of Mike Newton last year and then just walk away like nothing had happened. He spent most of his time suspended, and I'm pretty sure he got arrested last year, those were the rumors at least. No one has ever sat at Edward Cullen's table, not even his own siblings. This thought made me unbelievably nervous, but I found myself walking towards the table anyways. He was sitting there, playing with the iPod that he always seemed to have attached to him. I got to the table, hesitantly sitting in the seat farthest from him. He didn't move at all, looking as if he had no clue anyone had sat down with him. All that stressing out, and it wasn't even a big deal to him, or even me anymore. I got out the turkey sandwich that I made earlier, and took a bite. This gave me a chance to finally look around the cafeteria. I regretted that instantly, since everyone was looking over at me. Even the lunch ladies could not help but take a quick glance. Jess, Lauren, and all her little friends were pointing and laughing. If Edward had noticed this, it didn't seem to bother him at all. I just put on a brave face, deciding to just forget about all of this. I had finished my lunch thinking that it would be time to leave. But when I looked at my watch, there still was a good 20 minutes left. I spent the time occasionally lifting my head to catch quick glances at Edward from the corner of my eye, but he remained the same. Only sometimes moving to change the song on his iPod. Right before the bell was going to ring, Jess and her little group of friends came walking near me, making my body tease up. "Look everybody," Jess smirked at me. "Bella is making friends so fast. That's what you get for being such a whore." They all laughed and walked out of the cafeteria. My face instantly turned red, and the sandwich I ate felt like cement in my stomach. When I looked up at Edward, he was staring right back at me, which made me look away instantly. A minute later the bell rang. When I looked back up, he was gone. Biology was next, which wasn't a horrible class. Science has always been a good subject for me. When I got to the room, it said, "Find out who you're sitting with," on the board. There was a list of people who were paired up on the wall. I went over and found my name. Right next to it was Edward Cullen. Never in my life have I talked to him before, and now I am near him, twice today. He was sitting at the back lab bench. I walked over and took the empty seat. I kept my eyes on the front of the room, not wanting to look into his eyes again. They were nice from what I had seen earlier, very green. And they weren't completely filled with hate towards me like other people in this school. I could tell he was listening to his iPod still by the way he was tapping his Finch RS in front of him like he was doing at lunch. I was wondering what he was listening to. My guess was hard metal or rap. "Welcome class, Mr. Banner said from the front of the room. "This year is going to be a good one, I can feel it." Mr. Banner was one of those really enthusiastic people. He had the kind of optimism about life that I would kill to have, or kill myself if I had. He was my teacher last year as well. And I know firsthand he can get old very quickly. This year was bound to be harder since this is the advanced biology class, which made me wonder how somebody like Edward Cullen could get into it. "This year is a big one for all of you, graduation," he said, causing some kids in the class to cheer like losers, although I was excited to get out of here. It can be a tough and stressful year for kids. Which is why I thought partners would be such a great idea to have. You will be working very closely with yours all year. Edward's fingers stopped tapping for a second, probably as unhappy as I was about having to work with him. After a second, the tapping started up again. "Today I will pass out books. The new books I ordered though haven't come in yet, so you are going to have to share just for today. Read the introduction of biology, silently," Mr. Banner said, passing out a book to each of us. When I got the book, I set it in between us and turned it to the correct page. I started reading, which was uncomfortable because I had to tilt my head a certain way to be able to read it without getting too close to Edward. Once I finished reading the first 2 pages, there was an awkwardness of not knowing when to turn it. It was hard to tell if he was even reading the book in the first place since he was still listening to his damn music. After 5 minutes I figured he must be done. If not, then I didn't even care anymore. I reached to turn the page, my hand bumping into Edward's, who was also going to do the same thing. We pulled away quickly. My face was probably a shade of red. My dad tells me that the wind could make me blush because it happens so often. "Sorry," he mumbled, and then turned the page for us. I didn't say anything back. He had been going to school with me as long as I can remember, and never once have I heard him speak. A part of me did not even know that it was capable. Luckily the introduction chapter was extremely short and neither of us would have to change the page again. "Okay, there is about 10 minutes left of class. I'll let you sit and talk to your pals quietly though," Mr. Banner said when everyone was done reading. It was obvious that Edward and I would not begin a fantastic conversation about our summer vacation, so I just sat there. I let out a small sigh, watching the clock slowly move second by second. I had a feeling Edward was looking at me. When I took a quick glance his way, I was right. Why was he staring at me? Did he think that I was easy or something, at that he might have a chance? When the bell rang, I sprang out of my seat and made my way to gym. That class went by slowly. Thank God it was the first day, which meant I didn't have to change. The last bell finally rang, concluding the longest day of my life. I got into my car, starting it up. It was probably the loudest car in the parking lot, but I loved it. I took one last look around the parking lot, spotting Edward, who was talking to a tiny girl with short black hair. It was Alice Cullen. I didn't know her personally, but she has been around at parties that I would go to, usually with her boyfriend Jasper. Edward was actually smiling at her. It was hard to believe that they were related. Alice was a popular junior and seemed like a nice person, definitely not like Edward. Then there was Emmett Cullen, who was still a senior because he stayed back 1 year. He was really popular. But then again, being star of the football team can do that for you. Neither of them were like their brother, which made me wonder how he got to be the way he was. I was starring like a total creeper. The way he would smile at his little sister, it was a somewhat crooked smile. It was nice though, made his whole face a lot brighter. He had good features, his hair was one of them. It was kind of all over the place, but it was a bronze color that no one else in school had. Edward was also good looking, very good looking actually. If he didn't have such a bad reputatio. And he might have been able to make friends here, but I'm the last person to be talking about reputations and friends. He said goodbye to his sister who was walking over to Jasper. Him and Edward did that nod thing that guys do. Opening the car door, he took one last look around the parking lot, and that's when our eyes met. His expression was unreadable, probably wondering if I was stalking him or something. After a second he looked away, got in his car and was gone. I put my car in reverse and headed home. It took a while because my heart was pounding for some reason. What are the chances of a 17-year-old of having a heart attack? I wondered this the entire drive. My mom's car was in the driveway, which meant I had to put on a happy expression. Bella, my mom, called when I reluctantly entered the house. "How was your day?" she said, appearing in the living room. "It was great." Lie 1. "Did you talk to Jess and all your friends?" she said with a smile. "Yeah, of course." Lie 2. "I'm glad. Senior year is going to be the best. I remember just spending time with all of my best friends, going on road trips and just having the greatest time." "You are going to have the time of your life," she said, giving me a hug, and then going back into the kitchen. A part of me felt guilty for not telling her and my dad what had happened, but it just seemed easier for me to keep it in. I was not good with change. Especially with the information I had, it could change everything. I guess I would just have to keep the lies coming, and everything would be fine. It won't be easy faking the best year of my life, but it was worth a shot. The first week went by in a blur, not fast in any way though. The weekend took forever to get here. The only good thing was that people stopped talking about me, not completely. But I was not the center of attention anymore. They were not talking about me, but they still definitely didn't talk directly to me either. I was avoided like the Black Plague or Charles Manson, although I'm pretty sure he even had some friends. I continued to sit with Edward Cullen at lunch, no longer calling it the reject table for obvious reasons. There were some silent rules we had created, such as we don't talk to each other ever. Okay, so that was pretty much the only rule, but I still followed it. He never ate lunch, just sat there with his iPod out, not moving. I did my best to spend the hour not staring at him. I didn't wanting to go through that awkward, "sorry I'm a total creep" moment. There were times that I couldn't help the constant yelling in my HEA and I would glance at him from the corner of my eye. Edward always left for biology before me, which I guess could count as rule number 2. Then I would sit next to him in class, never looking at him or saying a word. It was nice to have that consistency in my life. Everything else could go wrong in my day, but I would always have my quiet lunch and biology class with Edward Cullen. Mr. Banner has not yet made us do any partner work in class, and for that I was grateful. If I had to talk to Edward, I honestly would not know what to say or do. A part of me was scared that if he finally did speak it would be to tell me to stop staring at him like a freak all of the time. There was kind of a sadness about the weekend ahead. Of course I definitely did not want to stay at school while people called me a slut behind my back or to my face depending on the person, but I would sort of miss Edward in a way. Not him exactly, just being able to sit with a person and not having them talk shit. At least I hope he didn't. For all I know he could think I am the most pathetic person out there. It can be stressful trying to convince your parents that everything is alright and that you still have a decent social life. On Friday night I told them I was going to the movies with Jess, which led to my dad saying don't have too crazy a night. The only thing that was crazy was the fact I drove around for 2 hours thinking up an entertaining story about that night's escapades. My mom likes hearing stories, especially ones with a lot of detail. I like to think that I have a good imagination and am pretty creative, but I was running low on ideas. I even tried watching The Hills once to maybe get some insight on what friends do, but there was just too much drama, and I'm pretty sure my IQ was beginning to suffer from all the blonde. I spent the rest of my weekend reading, listening to music, and wondering what Edward was doing. I was not obsessed with the guy or anything weird like that. Since becoming a complete outcast and nobody, It made me wonder why other people were too. I imagined he was out with his tattooed, ex-felon, druggy friends at some sketchy bar listening to some screaming metal band. That idea did not come from watching The Hills. He was probably getting completely trashed every night, but still always keeping his iPod attached to him. I pictured him happy around his type of people, giving everyone that incredible crooked smile. "What are your plans for the week ahead?" my mom asked at dinner on Sunday night. "I'm not sure yet," I shrugged. "No groovy parties?" my dad asked. I had to bite back a laugh. "Not since the 70s. Get caught up with the language, honey." My mom said. She should have just stopped there. "They say hip and fat." I put my head in my hands, shaking in embarrassment. "Fat," I heard my dad say. "Now that is not nice." "PHAT. My mom corrected him. "Please let me be adopted. Some high school dropout must have came up with that one," he said as I uncovered my face. "Could you please change the subject?" I begged. "Okay, honey," my mom said, sticking her tongue out at my dad. "So are you talking to any cute boys at school?" "Wow," I sighed. "Can't we just discuss the weather like a normal family?" "That means that there is a boy. Who is he?" she said excitedly. "There is no boy or a fat party in my life, okay? Just drop this," I said a little more angrily than I intended. It was silent for the rest of dinner. There was a lot of tension flowing through the air. When we were all done, I excused myself and went to my room. After finishing the rest of my homework and taking a long hot shower, I laid in my bed. Tomorrow would be the start of another school week. It would end up being a long and annoying one. At least I could look forward to lunch with Edward Cullen. School on Monday went by just like it normally did. The first classes leading up to lunch went by painfully slow. English was hell. Shakespeare on a Monday morning is almost if not equal to Chinese water torture, or so I would assume. Spanish class was humiliating. Mike Newton kept making jokes about me being a whore, which caused the whole class to laugh. The only person who didn't was Alice Cullen. She was giving me a sympathetic smile. It's weird, I have never talked to her before and she was being nice to me, very odd. When the lunch bell rang, I walked over and sat at my usual table. I let out a sigh of relief, happy to get a chance to sit down in peace. Edward was sitting there with his earphones in an iPod out on the table. He looked slightly different than usual, his clothes were somewhat nicer and he shaved the scruff off his face. He looked hot. I tried not to stare at him, keeping my eyes on the English essay that I had for homework. I wasn't hungry, even if I did pack a big lunch. From the corner of my eye though I could see Edward looking at my food. Unlike me, he did seem hungry today. I've found it weird that he does not buy lunch ever. His dad is a doctor, so you would think he must have some money to give him, and by the looks of Emmett he definitely looks like he eats a lot. I didn't like to waste food after watching some documentary on how much food gets wasted each year in the United States. It was a huge amount. I pushed my paper bag, filled with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some chocolate chip cookies towards him. It landed perfectly next to his hand. Even though I had the courage to push the food at him, I still couldn't bring myself to look at his reaction, averting my eyes to my homework instead. From what I could hear, he didn't move for a second, probably creeped out. But then the bag opened and he was eating, I think. I spent the rest of my lunch period trying to write an essay, which turned into me just writing random song lyrics down. My watch told me the bell was going to ring in a minute, and that Edward would be gone just like he always was before me, and when I looked up, he was. Only 2 more classes left and I would finally be able to go home. I have wanted to take a nice nap ever since I got up this morning. I let out a small yawn, making my way to biology class. Hopefully we weren't doing anything that involved thought. I sat in my seat. Edward was there with his iPod. I wonder what would happen if he lost that thing. Maybe shoot up the school. "Good afternoon, class," Mr. Banner said in a too loud, cheerful voice. "Today you and your partner will be working on the mitosis lab together. All the equipment you will need is on your lab bench. Identify the phases that are on the slides." Now have fun and get to work. Great. Now I would be doing all the work myself, he would probably slack off. There were 5 slides in front of us, I grabbed one and put it on the microscope. I adjusted the focus, prophase. I said, looking at Edward for the first time. He had taken the earphones out and was looking at me. Can I take a look? He said, grabbing the microscope before I could even answer him. Yeah, it's prophase. Well, isn't he a friggin' Einstein? I know, I just said that, I mumbled under my breath. He let out a small laugh, grabbing the next slide, and looking into the microscope. Anaphase. Can I take a look? I smirked, taking it and looking. Damn, he was right. I just nodded, not wanting him to say anything along the lines of, I told you so. No need to admit it, I know I'm right. He smiled. I was Pr. Eddie sure. My breathing stopped for a second and my heart pounded against my chest. Seeing that crooked smile from afar is nothing like it is up close. Was he being nice to me? This was not how I'm in the badass Edward Cullen to be like. You just had a lucky guess, I said while putting the next slide on. I took a quick glance at it. Interphase, do you want to check or are you going to just go along with me? I'll believe you this time. He nodded, putting the next slide on the microscope and looked. Metaphase, which means the last slide is telephase, so it would be pointless to even look. What if Mr. Banner did 2 of the same phase to throw us off? I said sarcastically. Ah, he smirked. You're one of those outside of the box thinkers, aren't you? Not at all, I'm very much in a box. I did that stupid thing mimes do when they're stuck in a box or whatever they do. It made him laugh though, with me, not at me, I think. Wow, now I understand why you have to sit alone at lunch every day. He joked. I fake glared. I wouldn't be talking if I were you. I don't see people fighting to be in a seat next to you in the cafeteria. Touché. He nodded. We sat there for the last few minutes in silence. Not that weird silence where you are mentally counting down the seconds until you can leave. It was comfortable. I wanted to sit there forever. For the first time in months I felt relaxed. I mentally sighed when the bell rang and we exchanged one last look, and then I left for gym. Last period of the day I spent replaying what had just happened. I had created my own theory of what he would be like. I always pictured a really arrogant, mean, unintelligent asshole. I guess this is what they mean when they say don't judge a book by its cover. At the end of the day I shut my locker and started to walk off towards the parking lot. I walked right into someone. I was about to apologize but then saw who it was, James. My entire body felt like rubber. A part of me wanted to break down and cry while the other part wanted to hit him as hard as I could. Hey Bella, he said with a smile. James was that all-American guy who could get any girl he wanted. He graduated last year, which made me wonder why he was here at all. Probably to pick Jessica up. She was still dating him. Hi, I said quietly, hoping that would be it. How was your summer? Do anything good? Didn't see you at any of the parties that were going on. Just that one, he said, winking at me. It was becoming increasingly harder and harder not to throw up my lunch. No, I don't go out that often anymore. Doing a little R&R before college starts, good plan. He nodded. A year of sobriety before freshman year begins where you will probably be wasted the whole time. I know I am. Yeah, I nodded slowly. I got to go though. See you around. He gave me a smirk and that was my cue to get the hell out of the building before I fell to my knees. I started walking down the hallway, stopping slightly when I heard someone yelling behind me. Oh shit, what the fuck, Bella just called. Why do you keep talking to my boyfriend? I attempted to avoid her. I was never a big fan of confrontation. She came behind me pushing my right shoulder slightly, making me stumble a bit. I turned around and faced her. You were such a slut, I saw you talking to James. She yelled, causing the people in the halls to look over at us. What part of don't talk to my boyfriend ever again did you not understand? I'm sorry. It was all I could manage to get out. I don't care, she said, mimicking me. You are already the school tramp, why are you making it worse for yourself? I started walking away, then feeling two arms grab and push me into the nearby lockers. I hit the back of my head, hard. Jess got close to my face. Stay away from him or I will make it so you will never want to step foot in this school again. Got it, skank? I nodded slowly. Then she walked off and the kids in the halls started whispering and laughing. My face turned red and he throbbing in my head was not helping the situation, so I turned and ran to my truck. When I got in I just sat there, holding the back of my head, trying to hold back tears. There was a loud knock at my window. Please not again, Jessica. But when I looked up it was not Jess there, it was Edward Cullen. He looked unsure with himself. I was almost positive that if I didn't see him he probably would have run away and fast. After I found the ability to close my jaw from the surprise of him being there, I rolled down my car window. Hey, what are you doing here? Wow, I'm cool. I saw what happened and wanted to see if you were okay. He said while running a hand through his hair. I sighed loudly, putting my face in my hands. You saw that? Jessica Stanley is the biggest whore in school. She starts drama with everyone about anything. I lifted my head up to look at him. It's no big deal. It is to me. I mean the entire school already talks shit about me, now they can add this to the list of things to laugh at me for. You're wrong, he said with a nod. What are you talking about? I said, raising an eyebrow. I know that I'm all people talk about around here, some of them tell me to my face. I was saying you're wrong about the entire school talking shit about you. For one, I don't. This made me smile on the inside. That doesn't really help, you rarely talk anyways. He let out a small laugh, point made. He nodded. But thank you for not adding to the rumor mill. I smiled. That's not my style. He smiled back. Are you okay though? You hit your head pretty fucking hard in there. He said while looking back at the school. I'm fine. Just a tiny bump. I said, running a hand over where I had hit it, regretting that immediately because a sharp pain went through me, making me flinch. He sighed. You are a really bad liar. This almost made me laugh out loud, seeing as though all I ever do is lie and keep secrets. I am really okay. I promise, Scout's honor. I said, doing that little hand gesture. Thing I learned back during Girl Scouts. Okay, he said hesitantly. But you really shouldn't drive. Under what authority? I smirked. As a kind citizen of the Forks community, I must insist that you stay off the roads. To not just ensure your personal safety and well-being, but the good people of Forks, as well. He said in an official-sounding tone. I laughed, which made my head throb even more than it was before. You're going to make me walk home, do you know how far that is? Plus not to mention it's freezing out today. What kind of person do you think I am? Of course I won't make you walk home. He said, trying to sound offended. I have a skateboard in my trunk that you can borrow. I rolled my eyes, starting my car, and then he opened my car door. It's kind of difficult to drive with you standing there. I said, I'm driving you home. Says who? I smirked. Says me, and I'm taller, which means, I win. I let out a laugh. I am a very stubborn person. So is Emmett, who is twice my size, BU. Gee, he doesn't scare me and neither do you. He fake glared. I pictured the giant Emmett Cullen pouting in a ball on the floor while Edward stood over him with a stern look on his face. Fine. I sighed. What about my car? I can't leave it here. When I get home, I would have to explain to my parents why I left it at school. That could ruin everything that I worked to hide all summer. I wouldn't take that chance. Alice, my sister, can bring it to your house. He nodded. She'll just follow behind us, and then I can take her home. He said, texting somebody really quick, my guess Alice. I didn't even know Edward. In the back of my mind I was wondering if it was safe getting into a car with a strange boy, too many after-school specials and lectures from my parents. How do I know you aren't going to doctor? I've me out to some empty field and kill me. I said, half jokingly. He started laughing. Well, it's Monday. I usually commit murders on the weekend, that way I have more time to get the job done. Good to know. I let out a laugh, grabbing my bag off the seat, and stepping out of the car. I stepped on the ground, stumbling a bit, and then felt two strong hands on my upper arms keeping me steady. Thanks, I mumbled, blushing a little from the embarrassment of the situation. Wow, I've heard you are clumsy, he said, smiling down at me. I thought you didn't believe the whole rumor scene, I said, blushing even more when I saw his arms were still touching me. I wasn't sure that I wanted him to let go at all. He noticed me looking at his hands and removed them from my arms. I was mentally sighing. Obviously it isn't a rumor. He let out a laugh, then he looked behind me at something. I turned to see that it was Alice coming towards us. I noticed she was shorter than me, which is rare, since I am pretty far from being Shaquille O'Neal. She was also strikingly beautiful, way prettier than I could ever be, but then again the entire Cullen family was gorgeous. I remember meeting the handsome drive Cole Len before from my multiple trips to the hospital. The receptionists even know my name there. I am a klutz. Hey Edward, she said when she was close to us, and then she looked over at me. Hey Bella, I'm Alice, it's nice to meet you. She smiled wide. It's nice to meet you too. I smiled back. We have Spanish together, right? Yeah, she said with a nod. I'm sorry about Mike Newton, he was being a total jerk to you today. I looked over at Edward, who seemed pretty interested in what Mike Newton did. I don't think he likes him, judging by the fact he beat the snot out of him last year. I let out a sigh looking back at Alice. I'm used to it. I don't believe any of it, the rumors, she said. Now there were two people who didn't believe the hype. 2 down, a couple hundred to go. Thank you. I smiled genuinely at her. Sorry to interrupt the girl bonding, Edward Saeed with a laugh, but Bella should get home. I'm going to guess her head hurts from the whole locker incident. I saw that. You have way too much willpower. I would have kicked her ass into the ground, Alice said with a smirk. Okay little girl, Edward Saeed, rolling his eyes, which made her hit him in the gut. Lame, he smirked, but I did see. Watch him out of the corner of my eye, rubbing his stomach a little. I laughed, then handed her my keys. Are you sure you want to drive it? I can always leave it here and have my dad bring me to get it later. No, I want to. I've never driven a truck this big before, she said enthusiastically. I wouldn't go over 40 miles an hour, I said, nodding my head at the car. Not because I don't want you to, but because it doesn't go that fast. I won't, promise. She laughed, then got into my car and started it up. From the outside the car was surprisingly way louder than from the inside. Now I know why people stare at me when I come into the lot in the morning. You ready, Edward Saeed? And I nodded. We walked to his car. He held the door for me while I got in. Edward Cullen holding a door for somebody, let alone me. This day is so strange. I buckled my seatbelt, admiring how nice his car was. He had 1,000 CDs in the back seat. When he got in, he gave me a look like he too was wondering how I got to be here in his car. He started it up, putting the car into reverse, and leaving the parking lot. We were silent for a minute. Do you know where I live? I asked. Yeah, he nodded, but then realized how weird it was. Not that I am a stalker or anything like that. It's just that everyone knows where everyone lives in this town, especially the chief of the police's house. I rolled my eyes. People never used to come to my house in fear of my dad. Not necessarily true. I don't know where you live. Do you want to know where I live? He said with a wink, which made me turn bright red, and then he laughed. You blush so fucking easily, it's hilarious. Well, I'm glad I amuse you. I rolled my eyes. Just drop me off at the circus and I'll entertain the masses. I can blush and learn how to juggle. He laughed. Juggling. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that your hand-eye coordination is lacking a bit. You would be right. I laughed. My gym class can tell you that. So then I won't be asking you to be on my baseball team in the future. He smirked. No, unless you want to lose. I nodded. You can be the water girl. He smiled. I looked at him, and had to ask. Why are you being so nice to me? Do you not want me to? I can throw rocks at you when you're walking around school if that will make you feel better. He raised an eyebrow, smiling slightly. No, I laughed, but I'm basically an outcast in the school now. I lost all of my friends and any ounce of dignity I had. So I don't understand why you are doing this, I said, gesturing to me in the car. He smiled slightly, looking over at me for a second. Then back to the road ahead. Because you make a fucking good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I laughed. Thank you, I'm so glad that it's because of my great personality. What personality? He joked. I hit his arm lightly, keeping my hand there a second longer than I should have. I might have to start eating lunch somewhere else. I hear there's a great broom closet near the teacher's lounge that's available. Have fun in there. He smirked. I will, I said, folding my arms over my chest. You are stubborn, he said, shaking his head. It wasn't a lie. You don't lie, he said, raising an eyebrow. Well, I mean, I have lied before. But everybody lies. Teenagers are 60 times more likely to tell a lie than any other age range, or so Google says. I don't. No way, I said, shaking my head. I am serious. I had to take a few anger management classes after I got into a little fight at a bar one night, but we won't talk about that, and I haven't told a lie since. You never say something to spare somebody's feelings. This was hard to believe. I did want to know about his little fight though. I can't hold stuff in, it doesn't work for me. He sighed. It just builds until I fucking explode and end up punching someone like Newton. Yeah, but he deserves it. He laughed. While pulling onto my street, I could see Alice in my car behind me. I don't fight anymore. I'm not good with confrontation either. I've noticed. He nodded, pulling his car in front of my house, while Alice pulled into my driveway. I looked at him. Thanks for the ride. No problem. He smiled slightly. I'll have to go back to ignoring you tomorrow though. He joked. I unbuckled my seatbelt, and opened the door. Good. I don't need you ruining my spotless reputation anyways. I smirked, getting out of the car. Edward laughed. See you tomorrow. If you're lucky. I smiled, turning around to see Alice there holding my keys. She dropped them in my hands. Thanks for driving it here for me. No problem, and by the way, totally got it up to 43 miles an hour. She smiled, getting into the car, and then looking at me. We should hang out sometime, if you want. I smiled. Yeah, that would be great. Good, because I left my cell number in your truck already. We both laughed. Bye, Bella. I waved at both of them, and walked into my house. Bella, is that you? I could hear my mom yell from the kitchen, so I walked in there. She was covered in flour. Trying to cook something. No, it's George Clooney. She laughed. Well, Mr. Clooney, could you get me the butter out of the fridge? I grabbed it, setting it down onto the counter for her. That isn't how you are supposed to treat the best-looking man in the world. It is when I'm trying to get dinner done. She looked at me and smiled. You are in a good mood. Yeah, I am. I smiled. Good day, I guess. I went to bed that night feeling really good, way different than I did on the first day of school. For the first time in months, I was happy. I didn't know it was even possible to feel this way anymore after everything that had happened. It could definitely be the fact that I was finally talking to people my age. I wouldn't necessarily say I had a friend or friends, but there could be potential there. 4 months ago, if someone said that I would be in a car having a good conversation with Edward Cullen, I would have fell over laughing. Now, I'm really glad it happened. The next morning, I was feeling a lot better about going to school. I put on a pair of dark jeans, a tight violet versus neck t-shirt, and my black Converse. I decided to get out of my ponytail rut. I kept my hair down and curled it. I even put on a little makeup for the first time this year. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the old me, the more confident, fun me. When Jessica and the other people at school see me, I hope this shows them that what they say isn't affecting me, even if some of it does. I drove to school, Getting my car up to 43, Alice was right. When I parked my car I could say, Jess and her little cronies were standing around looking in my direction. I got out of my car, my held high, and putting on an, I don't care, but kiss my ass look on my face. I gave a pissed looking Jess a smile and headed into school. Today is going to be good, I can feel it. I walked into my first class of the day, which was also my favorite. I've always really enjoyed English. I could still picture the surprised look on Jessica's face when she looked at me walking in this morning. I smiled to myself. She probably thought yesterday that I was defeated, that she had won, but she didn't. I was not going to feel like that anymore. It isn't who I want to be. I wanted to be rid of what happened on the first night of summer. The weight of that night was hard to carry. I have always been a confident person. Somebody who knew what they wanted from life and never took shit from other people. It's like I played hide and seek with my soul that one night, and never found it. Yesterday when I talked to Edward and Alice Cullen, and they did not judge me or call me a slut, it gave me hope. I might be able to get back some of the person I was before everything changed. Today was turning out okay, so far. Mike Newton said that I looked like a pretty whore today, not just my usual plain old whore. The sad part is that it was probably the nicest thing anyone has said to me in a long while. AF. Chair, he said that I looked over at Alice, who gave me a kind-hearted smile. I would definitely love to have Alice as a friend. She seems like a genuinely nice person who didn't believe all the bull. I was relieved but also slightly nervous when the lunch bell rang. It meant an hour of doing nothing, plus I was sort of hungry. I was worried though that things with Edward would be awkward. When I looked at him, he was sitting in his usual seat, with his slouched posture over his iPod. Nothing was different. I sat in the seat farthest from him, just like any other day, and started going through my lunch. I packed a turkey sandwich, pretzels, and peanut butter cookies. I grabbed a pretzel and popped it into my mouth, keeping my eyes on the table. I thought you would be eating in the broom closet with all your friends today. Edward saw Ed in a joking tone. I looked up in surprise. He was smirking at me. I thought he wouldn't speak to me again, maybe during a lab in biology, but not at lunch. He rarely spoke, not even to his own brother and sister. Why was I different? I was, but my buddy Joe the janitor had important business duty to take care of, but we are totally going to reschedule. I said, adding a nod. Probably heard some rumors and didn't want you bringing down his representative. This made me laugh, even if it was a joke at my expense. God forbid the Lysol wipes think any differently of him, I said, rolling my eyes for dramatic effect. He laughed. It was a nice laugh, very soothing, just like his speaking voice. I can already picture the brooms ditching him for Betty the lunch lady. The sad part is she most likely has more friends than me. I wrinkled my nose at the thought. That's not true, he said, shaking his head. Well, let me count out my friends. I made a big effort in pretending to think. Well, there's no one. I don't believe you, he said, shaking his head. You don't have to believe it, but it's true. I let out a sigh. I lost all my friends over the summer. Because of the stories, he said quietly, and I just nodded. I wish that Edward didn't know the rumors. Who knows what kind of details he was given, but he did hear, along with everyone else. The way I look at it is if they were real friends, they wouldn't let gossip get in the way. Then I guess that means I have never had a real friend before, since they all left me. It's high school, he said, like that was the gray explanation to all of my life problems. Why do people even bother with therapy? It all adds up to the point that it's high school. I rolled my eyes. Thank you very much, Edward Cullen. All this time that I was depressed and alone. That was the whole reason, high school. He shook his head, smiling. No, I'm saying that these people in this room and this town will mean nothing to you in about 5 years from now. They aren't worth it, at all. Now I see why you have no friends. I blurted out, but then felt bad once it slipped. Sorry, that was so rude of me, I didn't mean it. It's all right. He let out a small laugh. I do have friends though. I looked around the table at the empty seats. They seem nice, a little on the quiet side, but then again so were you up until yesterday. He smiled, trying to hold back a laugh. Imaginary friends, you think my social life has come to that? What social life? I smirked. Wow, he said, grabbing his chest, you know how to hurt a guy. I try. I smiled. Don't feel bad though. Imaginary friends are probably the only kind I could get. You are too negative, Bella. He said. I was kind of wrapped up in the way that he said my name. It sounded good coming from him. It's high school, who isn't negative? I said with a shrug. True. He nodded, but you shouldn't wallow over the past. I am not wallowing, I said, glaring at him when he gave me a look that said he didn't believe me. This, I said, gesturing at me, is not wallowing. Wallowing includes ice cream, and crying, and Van Morrison songs. You like Van Morrison? He asked. It wasn't what I thought would come out of his mouth next. He seemed surprised, probably expected me to listen to Justin Timberlake or some other pop garbage singer. I remember when Jessica looked through my iPod the first time, she had a look of complete disgust on her face, then asked where the Backstreet Boys were. Yeah, he's incredible, most definitely one of my favorites, I said, nodding. He was about to say something but the bell rang, startling us both. I guess lunch goes by faster when you actually talk to another human being. I started cleaning up my things, realizing that I didn't eat any of my loon. When I looked up, he was walking away with his earphones in like he did every other day. It was like we never even spoke to one another. I threw my trash away and ran into the bathroom to check my hair quick. With my luck, I probably had a piece sticking out the entire time that I was talking to Edward. I looked in the mirror, running my hand through my hair. It actually looked pretty decent. I took one last look as the door opened. In came Lauren. Lauren was a girl who absolutely despised me, even more than Jessica, and she scared me more too. My theory of why she never liked me is because she was jealous of the friendship that me and Jess had. She was treated like the third wheel. The night of the party was most likely the best thing to ever happen to her. I was out and she was in. Hey Bella, she said with a smile. I'm pretty sure I could see her fangs peeking out over her lip. Hey. I attempted to smile back. You look good today. Still not at all attractive, but there are some dogs out there that would be mighty jealous. She smiled again, standing in the mirror next to mine. Your little boyfriend Eddie seems to like your appearance, God knows why. She let out a laugh. He isn't my boyfriend, I said, picking up my purse. Not even that loser would want to touch your ugly, dirty body. Such a slut. I always told Jess you were pathetic. She had to find out the hard way. I thought that I would start crying. I held it in. I began to walk out, but she put her leg out in front of me and I hit the ground, hard. There was a sharp pain in my left arm, but I didn't want to give her the satisfaction, so I hid all emotion. Oops, sorry Bella, she said, walking out. Before she left, she turned and smiled. Have a nice life, loser. I laid there for a second, and then looked at my watch. I would definitely be late. I got up, which was hard with one arm. I was pretty sure my left wrist was sprained. I grabbed my stuff and jogged to biology, getting there a minute after the bell rang. Luckily there was some kind of teacher meeting, which meant Mr. Banner wasn't there. All the sub did was give me a disappointed look and then went back to reading the newspaper. I walked over to the desk feeling my classmates' eyes on me. I hated attention. Even if I had been getting a lot of it this year. I wanted to start crying right there. A part of it was from the throbbing pain in my arm and another part was from Lauren's words. I knew she was just trying to mess with me, but it struck a nerve. I held my arm close to my body, rubbing my wrist with my good hand. It was beginning to bruise and swell up, which meant another trip to the doctor's after school. It was about time. It's been a whole 3 months since my last time there. When I hit my head, I won't go into detail, I will say an ice cube was involved. You all right? Edward said, startling me a bit. I glanced at him. He was looking from my face to my arm, and then back to my face with concern. Yeah, I said, covering my arm a little more. Just tripped. He stuck out his hand, holding it out to me. What is he doing? He then motioned for my hurt arm. Let me see. I said I'm fine, really, it's okay. I said, trying to reassure him. If it's fine then there. Should be no problem in me looking at it. He said, gesturing his fingers for me to give in. Not going to happen. I said, shaking my head. I get that you're stubborn, but so am I and I will follow you around until you put your arm into my hand. I went to open my mouth again but he stopped me. Please Bella. I let out a small sigh and showed him my wrist. He lightly took it, rubbing his thumb along the bruised area. For a few seconds I forgot that there was ever pain. I didn't feel it anymore. His touch made me feel warm all over. I am also pretty sure that there was a spark. What is your definition of fine? He asked with a small laugh. I know that it's sprained. It wouldn't be the first time, but it's better than broken. I smiled. Don't worry, the hospital is calling my name after school. You are very hard to read. I was well aware that he was still holding on to my arm. It reminded me of yesterday when I fell out of my truck and he kept me steady. He released my hand when he noticed me watching him. Maybe if I injured myself on a daily basis he would keep touching me. Yeah, okay. I am a drive. Seuss book compared to the Latin dictionary that is your mind. He let out a laugh. Latin. I'm barely getting by in Spanish. That wasn't the point. I rolled my eyes, smiling. I got that. He nodded. I just like to keep to myself, I don't know. Which begs the point, why all of a sudden are you all nice and talkative to just me? I questioned. I actually have no clue. He said, shaking his head. It's because I looked so cool and approachable that you just had to speak to me, right? I joked. He raised his hands up. You caught me. Well, if it helps, I have no clue why I am talking to you either. We smiled at each other just as the bell rang. I did not want this to end, but I of course had class. I started grabbing my book. A sharp pain went through my arm. I had completely forgotten about the fall from earlier. I'll get those for you. He said, picking up my books for me. You don't have. I want to. He nodded. Let's skip last period. Together. I asked. No, separately. He laughed. Yes, together. I can take you to get your arm checked. Plus it's hard to play basketball in gym with one good arm. It's actually harder to play basketball with no hand-eye coordination and two left feet, but the arm doesn't help the situation either. I laughed. So is that a yes to leaving? He raised an eyebrow. I have never skipped class before. I was always the good girl. I've only faked sick once in 7th grade to get out of going to school and I felt completely guilty afterwards. My parents would kill me when they found out. Although I can use the whole hurt arm thing in my defense. I can't do this. Yes. 3 weeks ago I had been dreading the start of my senior year, worried that I would be pending it, isolating myself from everybody around me. So sitting here in Edward Cullen's silver Volvo and skipping my last period class was not at all a scenario that I could have ever planned for, but here I was. You seem nervous, he said with a small laugh. This is your first time skipping, isn't it? When your dad is the chief of police you don't really have a giant urge to leave school. I nodded, watching the road pass by me. Would he arrest you? He joked. That would most likely be the best thing to happen. I laughed. I imagine a much harsher punishment. You will be fine, he said, giving me a reassuring crooked smile. It surprises me that I've never seen him with a girl before. He was attractive, really attractive. You think so? I used to skip almost every day. You are with a pro, he said while running a hand through his hair. Not that I'm proud of that title or anything. Good to know. I nodded. I think my parents would just be happy with the fact I'm doing something that normal teenagers do. What is classified under normal? Well, skipping school, shopping on a daily basis, maybe going to actual sleepovers, I don't know. I let out a sigh, running a hand through my own hair. Damn, Edward's got me doing it now. He laughed. Sleepovers and shopping. Those must be normal girl things. I laughed. You know you love getting together for a night with your best guy friends to watch Legally Blonde and play Truth. Never in my life would I watch Legally Blonde. He snorted. And I don't even know what Truth is. My mouth dropped open in surprise. How could you not know what Truth is? Well, I have this thing. What thing? I asked, curious. A penis. He let out a laugh and looked over at me. Even at 17 years old I still found myself blushing at the word. This caused him to laugh a lot louder. Penis or not, Truth is the best and most brutal game out there. It is a top essential to a slumber party. I remember playing it at Jessica's house in the 9th grade for her annual sleepover. At least 3 girls were in tears before the game was finished. Let's play it, he said, turning down a street. No way, I said, shaking my head. Why not? It always ends badly, always. You build it up and then refuse to play, that is no fun. He looked over at me with a smirk. Come on, or are you too chicken? I believe them's fighting words, Mr. Cullen. I fake glared at him. He smiled. Explain this game to me. Is it like Truth or Dare without the dare? Yeah, kind of, I nodded. Say if I asked you a question, you would either answer it or refuse it. If you answer truthfully, then you get to ask me any question that you want. If you refuse the question, then you ask me a question. If I answer it, I win. It doesn't sound that bad. It is though. I nodded. People ask very intense and private questions. Answering can be completely humiliating. Plus the game could go on forever. I can handle it, he said. You start. Okay, but I warned you. I said, looking at him. What is your favorite color? Don't baby me, he said, letting out a sigh. That is a legitimate question. It was an easy question, not intense or private as you put it. Do not hold back. Fine, fine. I rolled my eyes. Why did you fight Mike Newton last year? He ran a hand through his hair, which I now knew meant that he was nervous, bored, or trying to buy time. He pissed me off, so I punched him a few times. I asked you why, not what you did. He gave me a strange look. You were the one who wanted to play the game. Touché, he sighed. First of all, let me say that last year I had a hard time controlling my anger. I'm better at it now, so don't think any differently about me. All right, now get on with it. I gestured for him to talk. He was talking about Alice in a way that I didn't happen to appreciate. I won't go into detail though, because I try to block it out of my memory. He treats girls like shit, he interrupted. Exactly. I nodded. Alice tells me he is a little mean to you, he said, looking at me through the corner of his eye. That is the biggest understatement of my life. I let out a sad laugh. I just try to ignore it. It's Mike Newton, so what he says usually goes over everybody's heads anyway. That doesn't make him any less of a dickhead. Touché. I laughed. We pulled into the familiar hospital parking lot. I could find this place if I was drunk and blind. I'm surprised that they haven't given me my own parking spot yet. He pulled into an empty spot. Hold on, I'll get the door for you, he said, getting out and walking to the passenger side, opening the door for me. Thanks, I smiled, getting up. No problem. He led back as we started walking towards the entrance. Don't be nervous about going in here. My dad is great. He can check on your arm and it will be all good, he said, opening the door for me. Trust me, I'll be fine. I let out a laugh and walked to the front desk. Edward was about to say something when the receptionist looked over at me and smiled wide. Bella, it's been what, 3 months? That has to be an all-time record. And this time you aren't unconscious. My face was probably bright red at this point. Thank you, Mary. I rolled my eyes. Way not to embarrass me. Aw kiddo, you know I love you. She smiled, taking a look at Edward for the first time and then giving me a wink. What can I do for you today? Wrist, I said, lifting up my arm and pointing at my injury. Did you fall off the bed again? Edward let out a laugh. I shot him a quick glare and he shut up. No, Mary, there was no bed. I was hoping my father could look at her. His name is Dr. Cullen. Edward spoke up. You are Carlisle's son. She looked from him to me. You really know how to pick them. Mary, could you please just get drive? Cullen, I begged. This was one of the most embarrassing moments that I have ever had to live through. I was starting to wish that I was unconscious. I'm just having a little fun. She smiled at me and Edward, then walked over to the phone and paged drive. Cullen, he will be right with the two of you. Want to sit? Edward saw Ed, pointing towards a row of chairs. I nodded and we both sat down. There was a sketchy-looking man across from us who kept looking at me. Just ignore him, Edward whispered next to me. He looks like someone off of America's Most Wanted. I whispered back, at least he looks like he's after you and not me. He joked. That isn't even funny. I glared at him. I only have one good arm, so I couldn't even fight him. Oh yeah, because with both arms you fight like Mike Tyson, he said, letting out a laugh. Don't make me bite your ear off. I narrowed my eyes at him jokingly. It's lucky we are in a hospital. Ears are quite easy to reattach. A man's voice said, walking up to us. It was Dr. Cullen. I recognized him from seeing him around the hospital before. He was very handsome. This went along with my theory that the Cullens were good-looking and that no one in Forks could ever reach their potential of beauty. Edward stood up, so I followed suit. Edward, I thought we were done with the skipping school routine. Remember what I said about the car and what would happen if you didn't follow the rules. I know. He let out a sigh. But I do have a legitimate reason to be here. The tea was when he acknowledged me for the first time. He then looked back at Edward curiously. Dad, this is Bella Swan. Bella, this is my father. It's nice to meet you. Drive. Cullen. I stuck out my good hand for him to shake. He took it with his and smiled. It's very nice to meet you too, but please call me Carlisle, he said kindly, and then looked at his son. I'm going to take a guess and say you didn't leave school to introduce me to your friend. I couldn't help but notice he said, friend, strangely, like he was surprised. Edward pointed at my arm. She fell, and it looks pretty bad. Wondered if you could take a look at it. I held my arm out for him to see. It's not broken, just a sprain. It will be just fine. We didn't even need to keep you from helping actual patients, I said. You study up a lot on broken bones? Carlisle asked. No, I'm just unbelievably clumsy. I nodded. I've broken my wrist and sprained my wrist before. There is a definite difference. Well, what do you suggest I do for the sprain? Drive. Swan. He smiled. I let out a laugh. The pain isn't severe, meaning there is no need for a splint. I should just take an aspirin, elevate it on a pillow, and ice it. That's exactly what I would say. He let out a laugh. You ever think about becoming a doctor? Never. I shook my head. I can't handle blood, not even my own. Too bad. There would have been a future in it for you. He smiled. You basically covered everything for your wrist, but if the pain continues I would come back for x-rays. Of course. I nodded. Bella, do you mind if I borrow Edward here for a second privately? Carlisle asked. That would be fine. He's all yours, I said. Edward gave me a look and walked over a couple feet away with his dad. I sat down, not wanting to stare at the two of them talking. I realized I was now alone with the creepy serial killer guy, who was still staring at me. I was contemplating the irony of being murdered in a hospital when Edward came back. I stood up quickly, wanting to get out of there. Sorry about that. He ran a hand through his hair and held out an ice pack in the other. This is for your wrist. Thanks. I took it from him. I hope I didn't get you in trouble. No, of course you didn't. He was talking to me about something else. I gave him a look that said I wasn't buying it. It's okay, I promise. He let out a laugh. Do you want to get going? I looked at the creepy guy and then back at him. Yes, please. He laughed and we both started walking out towards the parking lot. I held the ice pack on my wrist. It definitely felt better. When we go to the car, Edward held the door open for me, which made me smile. Never would I think Edward Cullen would be the polite kind that held doors for others. It's my turn to ask a question, he said with a smirk when we were both in the car. Great. I said sarcastically. I won't make it that bad for you maybe. He smiled, pulling out of the parking lot and onto the main road to my house. The point of the game is to give me the absolute worst. That way you have a chance of winning. I explained. True, but I thought I would drag it on a bit before I get to the hard-hitting questions, that way it's more fun for me. It's good to know one of us is at least having fun. I let out a laugh. Okay, here it goes. He paused. How did you really hurt your wrist today? I tensed up in surprise. That was not at all what I thought he would ask me. It took me completely off guard. What, do you mean? I know you didn't just fall. The look on your face when you walked into biology was not from being in pain. You looked too sad. He said, throwing a quick glance at me and then back on the road ahead. I was about to open my mouth but he interrupted me. Remember, the game is called truth. The truth is that I did fall. I let out a sigh. With a little help from a certain person. Who? He said, looking kind of pissed off at this information. Lauren Mallory. Unbelievable. He looked even madder than I was over this whole situation. It was actually kind of sweet. That girl is such bitch. It's okay, it could have been worse. I nodded, thinking of ways it would have been more embarrassing. She could have tripped me in the cafeteria. Rose would have kicked her ass if she did that. He said, but then looked slightly panicked by this. What? I asked. It's nothing, forget it. He said, keeping his eyes on the road. Okay, well, it's my turn to ask a question. And I want to know why you just said what you did. I said while he groaned, which made me smile. All right, but let me just say that is pretty ruthless. He gave me a look that made me laugh. Rosalie Hale, my brother Emmett's girlfriend, absolutely hates Lauren, probably because she's always blatantly flirting with them. There's more to this story, I can tell. I said, gesturing for him to go on. Rose gets mad when Lauren does shit to other people. He looked nervous, especially people who are, friends of Emmett or his family. Are you saying that I'm your friend? I laughed at how hard that was for him to get out. He rolled his eyes. Wipe the smirk off of your face. Are we going to get matching best friends bracelets? I laughed. He covered his face with his hands but left a crack between two fingers to see the road. We can play hide and seek on the weekends, bake cookies, and go shopping. Gee, this is going to be great. I joked. It was fun to watch him squirm. That isn't funny, he said, which just made me laugh harder. You're right, it's actually kind of hilarious. I said, grabbing his arm and uncovering his face. His face was slightly red from blushing. It was kind of adorable. And people wonder why I don't talk to anyone at school. He looked at me for a second, a shiver ran through me. It was silent after that. I wasn't sure if he felt it too, but it was strange to me. We pulled up to my house 10 minutes later. My parents weren't home, but my truck was in the driveway. How is my truck here? I kind of stole your keys before we left school and put them in my locker for Alice, so she could bring it home. He said like it was no big deal. That's a little creepy, he interrupted. Yeah, but look at the bright side, your car is here. He smiled. I let out a laugh. How did Alice get home? Emmett drove behind her, or should I say in front of her, since the truck was too slow and he was getting impatient. He smirked. My truck is amazing, it doesn't matter if it's slow. I said, sticking up for my car, which has become my baby. It's a great truck, suits you. Are you saying that I'm slow? I said, trying to look upset. He laughed. Of course not. Good, because friends don't make fun of friends. I smirked. And you want to be best friends, remember? He shook his head. You are going to torture me with the whole friend thing, aren't you? That's what friends are for. I nodded, opening the door. Thank you for the ride, friend. I could hear him laughing as I got out of the car. He was probably shaking his head while running a hand through his hair like always. I started walking towards my front door. Hey Bella. I turned around to see Edward talking through the side window that he had rolled down. Yeah, I asked. Me, Alice, Jasper, and all of them watch movies every Tuesday night at my house. It's just something stupid that we've done since we were younger and never stopped. Do you want to come over tomorrow and join us? If you want to, you don't have to, I just thought I would ask. He looked nervous again. Yeah, I would love to. I smiled, and he looked calm. Good. He smiled back. I'll pick you up at 7 tomorrow night. That sounds good. I nodded. Okay, great. Go rest your arm. And I will see you tomorrow. He nodded, and drove off. Tomorrow night I would not only be hanging out with Edward, I would be at his house with him while we watched a movie. 3 weeks ago this would have never been my life, but I was not complaining. I had a detention. Me, Bella Marie Swan, daughter of the chief of police, now had her first ever after-school detention. This just happened to go along with my first time ever skipping class, and my first time hanging out with Edward Cullen. The strange thing was that I did not regret it, at all. For once in my life I did something exciting and out of my ordinary, and I liked it. It was harder to convince my parents that this was overall a good thing for me. I at least showed them that I can screw up sometimes, it is possible. And that I'm not always the boring predictable me. Of course they were upset. My dad was downright furious, although I did see a flash of happiness flash across her face when she found out that a boy had been involved. Luckily they didn't ground me, since I played the "my arm hurts" card, which got me off scot-free, well minus the detention. I knew I was going to get in some trouble the next day, it was inevitable. So when I got pulled out of class at the end of English, I knew what was coming. It was my first time going into the principal's office, or just the office in general. I went there once to pass in a permission slip to a field trip in 9th grade, where ironically I ended up having to leave the trip early because I slipped and broke my ankle. Principal Green gave me a long lecture on how skipping class is irresponsible and how breaking the rules can be a bad habit to have in the future. I nodded when needed and made myself seem disappointed during all the right times. All the while watching the clock. 42 minutes spent in his office, and everything he said went right over my head. Since it was my first offense, as he put it, I was getting off easy. Isabella, I am again extremely disappointed in your actions, he said as I was getting up to leave. It was about time too. I was starting to feel claustrophobic being in his office too long. I know, as am I. Next time I will think before I make bad decisions. I nodded. Good, and you might also want to rethink your new friendship with Mr. Cullen. He is a smart kid but a bad seed. He opened his office door for me. And he will be harshly punished for his actions as well. Guilt flowed through me quickly. With all the concern over what would happen to me and the trouble I would be getting in, I had completely forgotten about Edward. Harsher punishment probably meant he would get into even more trouble than I was, most likely because of his less than perfect track record. This was all my fault. Mr. Green, please don't punish him. It was all my idea to leave school. He was doing me a favor because my wrist hurt, I couldn't drive alone, and he generously offered to bring me. If I let Mr. Cullen off, what lessons would he learn from that? That helping others is a good thing. I smiled innocently. Nice try, Miss Swan, but skipping class is a rule that he must learn to not break, and if that means a harsh punishment, then so be it. I could tell he wanted that to be the end of our conversation, but I couldn't do that. Then I want the same punishment that he gets. He looked taken aback by this. Probably thought that I was crazy. I even thought I was pretty crazy, so it's understandable. I was very generous with just that one detention. It is at your best interest to take that and be done with it. With all due respect, sir, I believe I deserve the same if not more for what I did. He thought about this for a second. In that case, 1 day suspension tomorrow, he said with a stupid smirk on his face. Unless you feel that more is deserved. I sighed. No. 1 day is plenty. All right, Miss Swan, have a good rest of the day, he said, and then looked into the open office. Mr. Cullen, you know the drill, he said, going into his office, leaving the door open for Edward. That's when I first saw him sitting there. He was shaking his head while trying not to laugh, Great, he heard what I just said. As I walked past him, he looked at me. I know you aren't the usual juvenile delinquent, but when the principal lets you off easy, you're supposed to take it. I couldn't just let you get all the crap for this. He ran a hand through his already messy hair, smiling down at me. You care way too much about other people. No, just my friends. I winked and walked out of the office. I could hear him quietly laughing as the door shut behind me. Now to go along with my first time skipping class, my first time disappointing my parents, my first time in the office, my first time playing Truth WITH a guy, and my first time winking at Edward Cullen. I now had my first suspension. Isn't life just grand? Alice was at my locker before lunch waiting for me, at least that's what it looked like. When she spotted me, her face got instantly excited and she ran over, hugging me hard. For someone who I have had only one conversation with, she treated me like we have been best friends for years. Bella, I've wanted to talk to you since yesterday, but I realized I don't have your number, which you really need to give me. Then I was looking for you in Spanish class and you weren't there. By the way, I can give you the assignment later if you want, but of course you want it because then you would get a 0 and that's never good. She said. I was pretty sure she didn't take a breath that entire time. Sorry, I was in the office during Spanish, I said, opening my locker and putting my books away. Yeah, Edward told me you guys skipped class together yesterday. I didn't think you were the type. Neither did I. I let out a quiet laugh. But it was definitely a one-time thing. Good, because I don't want to see you get in any trouble. She smiled. It was at that moment I realized that I wanted Alice as my friend. I liked that she cared about other people, wanting everyone to be happy. It's a good quality. Me either. I got my first suspension ever in my life. I sighed. That sucks. Did your parents completely freak out? And are you going to be able to come to movie night tonight? She said too quickly, another quality that I've found she possesses. My parents don't exactly know that I have the whole day off tomorrow. But I really hope that I can go. I'm looking forward to it. We started walking towards the cafeteria. Alice didn't seem to notice that people were talking about us. If she did notice, she didn't seem to care. A person could get a pretty bad reputation hanging out with me. You should have seen my mom's face when Edward told us that you were coming tonight. He has never, and I mean never, brought anyone to movie night. This is a big deal. I felt those flutters in my stomach that I sometimes got when I was with Edward. I didn't know how to explain them. That doesn't make me nervous or anything. I joked. Don't be, Bella. After the first 30 or so minutes of us poking and prodding you, it should be a very fun evening. She laughed. I hoped that was a joke. I wrinkled my nose as we both said our goodbyes. And I made sure to give Alice my cell phone number before she left. The cafeteria was full by the time we got in there. The usual cliques of people were together. Edward was at our table with his earphones in and the hood of his black sweatshirt on his head. Most people would probably be scared by this, but I was used to it. I also noticed Jasper, Rosalie, and Emmett. At another table where Alice was just joining them. If they were so close with Edward, why did they sit so far from each other? I sat down in my usual seat, farthest from Edward. We were friends, but why screw up our usual routine? When he saw me, a crooked smile appeared on his face that made my breath hitch for a moment. He took the earphones out. Hey loser, he said with a smirk. I laughed. Is that how you treat people? No, just my friends, he said, mocking me from earlier. I don't appreciate it. I stuck my tongue out, pulling out my lunch from my usual paper bag. And to think I was going to share my peanut butter and jelly sandwich with you, tisk tisk. His bottom lip protruded out. I'm sorry. He looked like a little kid, which was funny seeing as though he had scruff on his face. You are awful, I laughed, passing half of the sandwich towards him, which he took happily. I started to eat my lunch. I wasn't too hungry though, plus it was difficult to eat feeling Edward's eyes on me. When I looked over at him, his eyes averted towards the table quickly. Are you going to awkwardly stare at me the entire lunch period or what? He looked at me. I wasn't awkwardly staring. You said that you don't lie. I smirked. He let out a groan and ran his hand through his hair. But I can totally see why you don't lie, you suck at it. Okay, so yes, I was looking at you, but not staring. Staring sounds strange. That's more something peeping toms or perverts do. Alright, good point. I nodded. But you don't have to look at me through lunch, we can actually speak to one another. There is a certain game of truth that is going on. And it's also my turn. He smirked. Yeah, I like the starring, or looking better. I said, shaking my head. You aren't getting out of this easy. He smiled. My question is, what is it that you want to be when you're older? This will probably sound stupid, but I would love to be a writer. I said, keeping my eyes on the table. That was the first time I have ever said it. My parents didn't even know that. I just always thought people would find it ridiculous. That's not stupid at all, he said, and I looked at him. I know it's not, it's just not a practical job choice. I think you would make a great writer. He nodded. You've never even read anything that I've written. I laughed. But thanks anyway. When you write your first novel, may I suggest in the dedication section that you put, "This would have never happened without the coolest person in Forks, Edward Cullen." He winked. I shook my head. That actually fits perfectly with the whole book. The theme of it will be big egos and how they are very unattractive. I am hurt, Bella. He held his hand to his heart. I might have to uninvite you to the movie tonight. You wouldn't. Alice already told me that she's excited that I'm going. Plus she said your mom was thrilled and you wouldn't want to disappoint her, now would you? I smirked. Wow. That is really embarrassing. He ran a hand over his face. Did she say anything else? No. Is there more to tell? No. But when Alice gets excited about something she just doesn't stop talking. I think she should be studied or something. She can go for a full 2 minutes without taking a breath. That has to be something special. I've noticed that about her. I laughed. Yeah, but it's hard not to love her when she gets like that. It's also not too hard to get annoyed with her either. Can I ask you something? I looked at him. It's my truth question. Go for it. He nodded. All right. So you hang out with Alice, Jasper, Emmett, and Rosalie. At least I'm guessing you do since you talk about them occasionally. But my question is, why don't you sit with them at lunch, or talk to them in school? I talk to them in school. He assured me. I get that, but you don't talk to them that often, why? I asked. We used to all hang out together, a lot. I mean, we still do, but it's different. Freshman year they paired up and started dating, which left me to be the kind of fifth wheel. He sighed slightly. I love them though. 2 of them I kind of have to since we're related, but they are all my friends, best friends. But after a while it became more Alice and Jasper and Em and Rose. You felt kicked out of the group? No, I wouldn't say I felt kicked out, it was just not the same. I got used to being by myself. He shrugged. I started hanging out with a bad crowd, got into some trouble, and wasn't doing well. They were all there for me though, even when I was a giant dickhead. Why do you sit by yourself? I asked, and he gestured towards me. Okay, yes, I am here now, but all last year you were alone. Last year I was an angry person. Just wanted to be left alone all of the time, every little thing just pissed me off. Even though I'm better, I just got so used to being by myself. Lunchtime gave me a chance to think and clear my head during the day. Do you want me to leave? I asked, pretending to get up. He looked panicked. No, you here is amazing. I laughed. Sure, that's what I was going to say. He rolled his eyes, laughing. But in all seriousness, I like that you sit here. I blushed slightly, which made him laugh. Don't laugh, it's not like I can control it, and don't get cocky, the changing time could make me blush, it's not difficult. Time gets me flustered too, he said, trying not to laugh. Before I could yell at him, the bell rang, which meant that we would go our separate ways. I started gathering my trash. Standing up from the seat, I turned around to throw my trash away but almost screamed when Edward was there. Holy crap, I said, holding onto my chest and trying to breathe. You scared the hell out of me. He laughed. How could I have possibly scared you? I've been standing here the entire time. It's not like I jumped out at you from around the corner. I threw my trash away and then looked at him. You usually run out of here like there's a fire in the room. Well, we're going to the same class, so he shrugged. You want to walk together? I asked. No, I'm just standing in here waiting for you to leave so that I can walk to biology by myself. Okay, I said, walking away. He caught up, walking next to me, which made me smile. I quickly started to notice the people talking in the halls as they watched us walk by. It was like wildfire spread through the halls of Forks High. I could now hear the rumor mill, school outcast and school whore find romance through the loneliness of their pitiful lives. We did not speak the entire walk there. Edward just kept his head down low, hidden in his hood, while I tried to look calm through the blatant stares. When we got to biology, we each took our normal seats in the back. Today we had to read silently out of our books. I read the same paragraph 20 times and didn't obtain any knowledge. I was too excited thinking about tonight and hanging out with my new friend, and I would get to see Edward in his own environment with his friends and family. I was also pretty nervous. Alice said that this was a big deal. I've never been a big deal. What if I fell flat on my face, or what if they asked me about the rumors from summer? I felt a tap on my shoulder and looked up to see Edward. Did you hear me? Yeah, of course. I nodded. What did I say then? He smirked. That I am the coolest person ever, I smirked back. I can see how me telling you the bell rang could be misinterpreted like that. He nodded, letting out a laugh. I looked around the room. Everyone was gone, even Mr. Banner. You were really deep in thought. I almost didn't want to disturb you. Thank God you did. I can't miss another gym class. One suspension is quite enough for me. I picked up my books, walking to my next class with Edward behind me. You can take comfort in knowing you won't be alone tomorrow, and think of it as a nice free day off of school. Getting to sleep in, watch TV, and do whatever else you do. If you feel so strongly about it, then maybe you can tell my parents for me. I smiled. And have Chief Swan point his gun at me? No thank you. He laughed. Just tell them that it will never happen again and that you regret ever leaving school. If you can throw some tears in, it will really make things easier. We were standing outside the locker room door. I'll try it and hopefully it works out. I sighed. Or else there might not be a movie night in my future for a long time. A flash of what looked like sadness was on his face, but then he covered it up, looking away. I guess you'll have to wait and see. I nodded. Well, I gave Alice my number and I have hers, so I'll let her know the details, good or bad, praying they are good though. I should probably get to class. He nodded. I'll pick you up at 7 if everything goes okay. See you later. I gave him one last smile, and went to get ready for my least favorite class of the day, gym. Suspension. My mom screeched after I broke the news of my punishment. Thank God my dad was still at work, so I could prepare for what he would do. It's only one day, plus at the end of today PR. Principal Green came up to me and said it won't even show up on my permanent record, it will just be marked as an absence. At least one positive thing comes out of this mess. She let out a frustrated sigh. Did I mention that I am very disappointed? I nodded, only about 347 times. Make it 348. Because I am really disappointed. Leaving school is so unlike you, Bella. I know, but my wrist hurt. What was I going to do? Go to gym and play volleyball in pain? I got lucky today. Coach Clapp said I could sit out until my arm felt better, which got me wondering. Gee, if I could drag this out for the rest of the year. You could have went to the nurse and called me. I would have left work to come and get you. The pain was so bad. I wasn't thinking straight. I said, mocking my eyes water so that it looked as if I was crying. Maybe Edward's plan would work. Oh honey, she said, pulling me into a tight hug. It's okay. I feel so guilty. I pretended to sob even harder into her shoulder. She pulled away, while I fake sniffled. Everybody makes mistakes. This was yours, and everything will be fine. We don't even have to tell your father. He goes to work before you usually leave for school and comes home late. He won't even know." "Really?" I said sadly, wiping a non-existent tear away. "Yes, it will be our little secret." She smiled, patting my shoulder. "Thank you so much." I smiled wide. She went back to making dinner, while I sat at the kitchen table contemplating how to ask her about the movie thing tonight, deciding the best way to do it is to just be straightforward. "Can I ask you something? I never skipped school, don't believe what anyone else says." She said too quickly, "My mom was a horrible liar." "No, that wasn't it." I laughed, shaking my head. "I was wondering if I could maybe go over a friend's house to watch a movie tonight." "No," she said, turning to look at me. "You skipped school yesterday, and now you got a suspension for tomorrow. You're lucky that you aren't grounded, young lady." "But I won't be home late." I sighed. "Don't fight me on this. I already said I could go though." I pouted, probably looking like a 5-year-old who was told she couldn't have a cookie before dinner. "You can call her back and say no." She shook her head and turned back to face the counter. "I'm putting my foot down on this, Bella." I was discouraged for a few moments, sitting there thinking out my options. But an idea popped into my head. "I guess I'll call Edward and tell him that we'll just have to do it on another night." I let out a dramatic sigh, reaching for the phone. "Edward." She turned around fast, and I nodded. Her face looked a lot happier than it did a few seconds before. "Dr. Cullen's son. That's the one," I said, turning on the phone as if I was about to call him. He was supposed to pick me up at 7, so I better call and tell him not to come. I started dialing random numbers. "You can go," she said loudly, running to take the phone out of my hand and shut it off. "I can?" I asked as if this was a surprise, but I knew my mom could not resist her only daughter hanging out with a boy. She was always asking me about guys, and she was always disappointed when I would say that there was none. I've never dated anyone before. The only kiss I have ever gotten I try to keep out of my mind. "Yes, of course, I would hate to break up a date," she said with a huge grin on her face. I almost wanted to tell her that it wasn't a date, but that would break her heart and she might not let me go. "Thank you," I smiled. I had been looking forward to tonight even though it wasn't a date, definitely not. It was just two friends hanging out with each other outside of school. Completely platonic. "You should go get ready, it's already 6. She said, pushing me out of my chair. "Oh, and before you go upstairs, what do you want to do for your birthday?" "Nothing." I sighed. I did this every year. She would ask me what I wanted to do, I say nothing, and then she pouts. I almost forgot that my birthday was Friday, or maybe I'm just getting really good at suppressing it from my thoughts. 18 is a big deal, she said, looking sad. "Fine, we can go out for dinner, nothing fancy, and no presents," I said sternly, walking away and stomping up the stairs. "We'll see," she yelled from downstairs, which made me roll my eyes. At 7 o'clock I was showered, dressed, and ready to leave. When I found out that I could actually go tonight, I sent Alice a text message saying that it was all set and that everything worked out perfectly. She then texted me back a very long mess. Age with about 100 exclamation points, which I took as her being excited. She also said Edward was happy, making me instantly happy. I decided to curl my hair for tonight, it always made it look shiner and nicer. I put on a little bit of makeup, just to bring out my face a little. The actual picking of clothing was difficult. I couldn't go overboard because it wasn't a date, but I didn't want to look like a slob either. I don't know why I was making such a big deal about this, it's not like Edward was stressing over it. Luckily Alice must be some kind of psychic angel who comes to the rescue of those less stylish than her. 10 minutes before 7 my phone vibrated. I picked it up, looking at my new message. "You should wear those nice dark blue jeans you wore that day I first drove your car home for you. And something blue on top, the color looks good on you. Smiley face, can't wait to see you, Al." I sat on the couch in my dark blue jeans and a navy versus neck t-shirt, just like Alice suggested. I looked pretty good, even I had to admit it. My mom kept coming into the living room to look at me. I was almost sure she would start crying. When I saw the car headlights pull in front of my house, I yelled goodbye and ran out the door as fast as I could before my mom came out insisting on meeting Edward. That would be embarrassing. He was getting out of the car when I walked over to him. Quick, get in and drive before my mom says something to humiliate me. He laughed, holding the door open for me. In that case, I think I'll stick around then. I sat down. Well, you left your keys in here. I'm leaving if you don't get in within the next 5 seconds, and do I have to remind you that I haven't driven a car that goes over 40 in a long time, so I might get a little crazy. He smiled, shutting the door. I couldn't help but notice that he shaved for tonight, and he smelled amazing. The car was filled with the scent of his cologne. A girl could find herself getting into an intoxicated bliss sitting here too long. I almost didn't hear him get into the car next to me, until his arm accidentally brushed into mine, sending shivers through my entire body. He started the car, pulling away. Where I could see my mom's face in the front window smiling, I held back a laugh. Your dad wasn't home? He asked after a few moments. No. Why did you want to take him to movie night instead? I smirked. As fun as that sounds, no thank you. He sighed. I am just surprised that he would let you hang out with me. He doesn't know I'm here, plus why would he even care? It's not like you're O.J. Simpson or something, although I paused. Those boots you have on do look familiar. You don't have leather gloves and knives in the backseat, do you? He laughed. If I told you, then I would have to kill you, but then again, if I was O.J., that would be my plan anyway. Damn, I fell for the old come to my house to watch a movie trick. I sighed dramatically. I have a feeling we are really going to an old shed in the middle of the woods. He nodded. And then after that, I will be driving to Mexico. It would make more sense to go to Canada, much closer. I let out a laugh. Yeah, serial killer is not in my future. I can't even pull off a decent getaway. True, I would stick to a more practical profession. I nodded. But why would my dad not like you? Let's just say they know me at the police station as well as they know you at the hospital. He laughed quietly. Then you've already met my dad. We're on a first-name basis. He nodded. That's why he looked so pissed when he found out it was you I skipped school with. I sighed, remembering the look on his face when just the mention of the name Edward was said. The little vein in his head almost burst. I can turn around and you can go on not knowing me, it would be fine. Well, you see, I'm only hanging out with to get with your brother, so that would mess up my entire plan. I said, trying not to laugh. That isn't even funny. He said, laughing. It kind of was. I smiled. But I don't care what you did in the past. From what I know about you so far, you seem pretty decent. Thanks. He turned his head away from me, but I could see that he was smiling, possibly blushing too. That was cute. He put on a mix CD, turning it up. It was a song that I have never heard. The lyrics were good though, and it was calming. The conversation sort of peaked at the whole murder discussion. I guess you could say it was dead silent now. I kept that little ditty in my mind, instead of saying it out loud in fear of severe embarrassment. I watched out the window, wondering where the Cullens could possibly live. I have seen Alice and Emmett at parties before, but they've never thrown one. When we slowed at a street in the middle of the woods, I began to get somewhat nervous. There was a long dirt road, with dark trees surrounding us. Maybe the whole murder thing wasn't a joke. It's all right. My parents just thought it would be cool to live in the middle of nowhere. He said, probably sensing my fear. Oh, okay, I said as we pulled up in front of this giant, beautiful house. It was lightened by the many lights inside. A chandelier could be seen hanging from the ceiling. Air was huge glass windows that were slightly tinted all around the exterior. You could make out a staircase through the main window. It was by far the nicest place in Forks. Too bad it was so hidden. Edward got out as I continued to stare. When my door opened, I got out and he let out a laugh. We like windows. Your house is amazing. I looked at him and smiled. Tell my mom that. I have nothing to do with it. He smiled. You ready to go in? I nodded. Yes, I am. Do you go shopping a lot? Alice asked excitedly. She was very close to my face. I mean, people say they do, but they go like twice a month. That just isn't a lot to me. I'm talking about at least twice a week, maybe 3, that's how often I like to get out. So do you like to shop? That is question 32. When I first came into the Cullen household, I was bombarded by people. It's as if I was some rare species that was just discovered and everything that could be known needed to be. Alice was especially curious about me. A game of 20 questions turned into an interrogation scene out of Law and Order. I did not enjoy being the center of attention, but I went with the flow of things, not wanting to appear rude. Not really. I truly think it's kind of boring to look at clothes for too long. I shrugged. Alice gasped and everyone, including Edward, looked nervous. Boring. Clothes. Are you serious? The mall is the greatest thing to happen to the female since Brad Pitt was born. Bella, how could you possibly not love looking at so many different pieces of clothing? It's like art, beautiful wearable art. Can I change my answer? I bit my lip, looking around the room at everyone. I haven't gotten a bad reaction to one of my answers since question 12, when Emmett looked at me like I was insane when I said that I have never seen an episode of True Blood. I just had to explain that vampires weren't really my thing. I will make you change your answer. She looked at me sternly. We are just going to have to go on a shopping trip. Maybe if we go together I can show you the fun of it. That's not really a good idea. Edward let out a sigh. And may I ask why not? I am a blast to be around and new clothes always make a girl very happy, it's a fact. You get sort of bossy when you are shopping, he said nervously. I do not get bossy. She glared, and then looked at Rosalie. Rose, tell him I am not bossy. If Hitler was a shopaholic, his name would be Alice Cullen, she said, and I had to bite back a laugh. I had figured out pretty much everyone in the room by now. Rose was the stubborn one who always had to be right, which was nice. She actually had common sense, unlike a lot of other blondes that I know. Alice was the optimistic, talkative, shopping addict. Jasper was the calm and quiet one, and was always there to lend you a sympathetic smile. Emmett was the one with the dirty mind. He could turn a sentence into an inappropriate joke, which I tried very hard not to laugh at because Rose didn't want anyone to encourage him. Then there was Edward, who was, just to sum it up, incredible. You are comparing me to Hitler. That is just mean, she pouted. I'm not necessarily saying you are similar, I was just saying you do get a little crazy when you are let loose in a clothing store. Rose said, trying to make her last comment sound better. Okay, so I get a little out of hand, but it's who I am, and if you don't like it. She stuck out her tongue. Was that a yes to the shopping then, Bella? I looked at Edward, who mouthed an I'm sorry, and I couldn't help but smile. Yeah, sounds great. I tried to be convincing. She squealed, yay, it is going to be awesome. We can drive out to Port Angeles, they have the best shops, and then we can have a total shopping day. Hours and hours in and out of stores, I am so excited. The thought of walking around all day and having to be in dressing rooms for hours made me exhausted. It would make Alice happy though, and I liked her, she was sweet. Plus, one day out of my life isn't going to kill me, I hope. Edward held up the DVD, attempting to change the subject. God bless him. Can I put it in? That's what he said, Emmett said with a smirk. I let out a laugh, while everyone else just shook their heads. You are such a loser. Jasper sighed, rolling his eyes. It was one of my best ones, he said, patting himself on the back. Please put the movie in so we can all forget the idiot that is my boyfriend. Rose said, sighing. This didn't even look like it hurt Emmett. He must have gotten those kinds of comments often. Do you mind if I use your bathroom? I asked Alice, who was next to me. Bella, mi casa es su casa, she said. Where is it? I smiled. In English, por favor. She let out a laugh. If you go up the stairs, it is the first door on the left. Gracias, I said, getting up and heading up the stairs. From the top step you could see completely down into the living room. Edward was putting the movie in, Rose was hitting Emmett, and Jasper was giving Alice a kiss on the top of her head. I liked all of their company, I just needed a quick breather from the insanity. I found the bathroom, and just like the rest of the house, it was nicely decorated. Edward told me his mom was an interior decorator. If her work on their house was any indication of what she could do, then she was definitely worth the money. I leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths to kind of adjust to this whole experience. Edward was one thing, but meeting all these new people at the same time was kind of overwhelming. After a nice quiet minute, I walked out. As I was doing this, I could hear talking coming from down the stairs. I guess she seems nice. I could hear Rosalie say. What do you mean seems? She is nice. Alice said. What she's trying to say is that, yeah, she comes off nice, but hen again, she did fuck that girl's boyfriend over the summer. Nice girls don't do that, Emmett said, and I felt sick. Seriously, Em, don't do it. Edward said, sounding pissed off. Do what? I am just saying. Those were rumors, all right. If you believed everything that was said in Forks, then that would make me a psychotic manic depressant that went to jail over the summer for stabbing someone. But that is different, Jasper said. People saw her leave the room with that James guy at the party. It's a little more than just gossip. You guys are fucking ridiculous. Edward sighed. They are just trying to look out for you, Alice said, which made me mad. Her and Edward were the only two that I could count on down there, and now she was sounding as if she was on the other side. Could you all just stop? First off, she gets enough shit at school. I didn't invite her here so that she could be harassed in a confined space by all of you. Fine, end of this, but if she does something to hurt you, I will be the first to say that I told you so. Rose said in a snotty tone. I wanted to cry, scream, and throw up all at the same time. Edward stood up for me, which was nice, but it's the fact that I had just spent an hour with all of these people being genuinely kind to them, and when I leave the room they treat me like every other person that I hated in this town. I couldn't just leave the house though. Confrontation wasn't my thing, and Edward was my ride home. I walked downstairs as if nothing had ever happened, then sat on the couch in between Edward and Alice. He gave me a small smile and I attempted to give him one back. Is Zoolander all right with you, Bella? We unfortunately put Emmett in charge of picking the movie this week, meaning all our IQs are about to decrease a little bit. Rose asked. Yeah, that's fine, I said. Jasper turned the lights off, while Alice pressed play. I really did not care what we watched because nothing could take my mind off what they were talking about while I was supposed to be in the bathroom. This was a mistake coming here. I should have known that I had a horrible reputation and everyone was against me, well, everybody except for Edward Cullen, but even he made me a little angry for bringing me here tonight. I sat there staring blankly at the screen in front of me. Everything that was happening went over my head. All I could do was count down the minutes until I would be walking out of the house and never have to come back here. Edward would look at me occasionally during the movie. That was when I would try to look interested in what was going on. Finally, I was put out of my misery when the credits rolled and the lights went back on. I was just praying that another round of 20 questions wasn't on the to-do list. Thankfully, Edward saved me once again. It's getting kind of late. I should bring Bella home, he said, getting up, and I got up as well, probably a little too fast. You should come again next week. It was a lot of fun, Rose said, and it took all I could not to just laugh at her face and call her out on her two-faced ways. Yeah, maybe, I nodded while attempting to smile. Bella, how about we do the shopping trip this weekend? Alice asked. Well, I have to ask. I think I might actually be busy this weekend though. I tried to look like this was really sad. Definitely soon though, you aren't getting out of this. She fake glared. Okay, let's go. Edward said, grabbing a hold of my upper arm and walking me slowly toward the door. I could hear everyone saying their goodbyes behind me, but I just ignored them. When the cold night air hit me, I took a deep happy breath as we walked to his car. He opened the door for me and I got in. The great night that I was planning to have was completely shitty, yes I swore, but it was. When he got in next to me, he started the car up and remained silent as we pulled away from his house. He was acting weird. Every 20 seconds he would open his mouth as if he was about to say something, then snap his mouth shut. This went on for about 10 minutes. You heard. What? I asked, pretending to be clueless, but I knew what he was getting at. When you went upstairs, you must have heard everyone talking. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Talking? Nope. Never heard any talking. He looked at me and then smiled slightly. You are a horrible liar. Okay. So yes, I might have heard some of the conversation. I nodded, looking out the window. We pulled up in front of my house. Edward put it in park and then reached over to touch my arm lightly. It made me forget everything that had happened earlier. His touch was warm on my skin. I'm sorry, he said quietly, not looking at me, but at his hand on my arm. Maybe he felt the tingles as well. You didn't do anything wrong. I shook my head, trying to get him to meet my gaze. I shouldn't have brought you tonight. He sighed, looking at my face for the first time. If I had known they would be saying shit like that. Seriously Bella, you deal with that enough at school. They were just trying to warn you about me. I interrupted. They were just being assholes. He said, probably trying to make me feel better. I don't blame them. All rumors have some truth for the most part. I looked away. Look, I should go, I said, pulling his hand away from my arm, opening the car door. It has been me and the four of them for years. Having you over was just different for us all. Plus they don't know you. Neither do I for that matter, but I want to get to know you. Earlier you said that what I did in my past didn't matter to you. Well, it's the same thing with you. Fuck the rumors. I couldn't give two shits about them. I smiled at him. Okay. Okay, what? He let out a laugh. I didn't know what to say. I laughed. Thank you though. It's nice to know that the is someone in Forks who cares just a little bit. Anyone who will get a suspension for me deserves some respect, even if it is stupid when that person could have only gotten a detention. He smirked. Wow, that hurts. I was just trying to be nice, I said, sounding offended. I do appreciate it. He smiled. So what are you going to do on your wonderful day off tomorrow? Fly to Paris, hang out with my best friend Angelina Jolie. Maybe swing by the moon, you know, the usual stuff that I do. Sounds fun. Could you get me Angelina's number? He winked. You aren't her type. I smirked. Are you kidding? I am a catch. He gestured to himself like he was the ultimate prize. To some girls he definitely was. Not me though, because we were just friends, nothing more, never. I rolled my eyes. In your dreams, Cullen. Tell me I'm pretty. He pouted, which made me start laughing hysterically. Come on, say it. You are gorgeous. I nodded. See, that wasn't hard at all. I got out of the car, shaking my head and laughing. I turned around and looked at him. What are your plans for tomorrow? Sleeping in and watching Tyra. She's my favorite. He joked. I'm more of an Ellen fan myself. She does dance pretty good, I'll give her that. He nodded. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, if you can pry yourself away from the television for a little while. I laughed. It will be difficult, but I think I could manage it. Okay. Then tomorrow. I smiled. Have a good night, Edward. You too, Bella. He gave me his best crooked smile, and that image stayed in my mind all the way inside. When I got in, my mom and dad were sitting on the couch. She looked thrilled while he looked as if he was getting a tooth pulled. I ignored them, making my way up to my bedroom where I would lay in bed and think about that smile, but in a friendly way, nothing more.